It was progressively getting worse, but I thought I was in control of it. There was this old thing, don't do it for more than 3 days, that old thing, and then you won't get in trouble. And then I think it was when I moved to Sydney, it started getting quite bad until one point, I for some reason I'd injected MDMA like quite a lot and had a weird reaction to it, and I called my mum and said, look, listen, I'm in bad shape. I've been on methadone for years. I need help.
I'm Paul Scolfort, and this is Powerful. In this series, I come clean about my own sobriety and the journey it took for me to get here. In each episode, I will speak to a special guest about their addictions and how they achieve sobriety and how they maintain a happy lifestyle today. Today, I'm really excited to talk to Andrea Taylor. With over 25 years of experience as a therapist, specialising in trauma, addiction, and couples therapy. She was the manager and director of the Priory Group Hospitals and currently has a successful private practice with families facing complex challenges. Andrea is in recovery herself, and she has an incredible story. So in some of these episodes, there will be discussions of alcohol misuse, drugs, sexual abuse, suicide, and some other heavy topics. So please take care when listening. Andrea, welcome. Thank you for joining me on This Is Powerful. Do you remember when we first met?
I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
Please tell me.
Well, I do and I don't. I mean, I was a different person then. I was so overwhelmed. I used to hide under my partner at the time's tracksuits. I was just so overwhelmed by everything.
This was 2004, wasn't it?
Was it? Yeah.
I went into the Priory.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it was July 31st or 1st of August.
So I was ahead of you by a year, I think.
Yeah. So you'd go back to visit?
Yeah.
So I met you there in the rooms. Was it what was it? Clay room, art room? At least do a meeting?
Yeah, the art room.
There. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never asked this, but what was I like when you first met me? Was I a complete mess? Because I felt like it.
Do you know what? I was too much of a mess to really notice, to be quite honest. I'm probably one of the only people that didn't really notice.
It's actually a good thing.
I was too self-obsessed. Other than when you gave me a lift home one day.
Right.
In your Ferrari.
Which is very cheesy.
Which, well...
wasn't an extension of anything. It was just a vehicle.
No, not at all. But I remember thinking, what on God's earth am I doing? Like, I just felt... it's really sad, really. I didn't feel good enough.
It's sad, isn't it?
Yeah. Very sad.
I remember... remember you as a couple. Mm-hmm. And your son, who was so young then, thinking... well, I was just trying to get myself better, but just thinking, wow, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. Like, these guys are in here. And I really vividly remember that you were working a program. You seemed to be driven and really cool about it. And at that time, I remember being in such emotional pain that I used to rock on the chairs and hold on to the chair in front of me and just think, when is this going to go? Like, when is this pain going to go? And I remember shouting out in a meeting, it doesn't make me feel emotional, shouting out, when does this go? And someone turned around and said, you'll be fine, just keep coming, it'll go. And I was just hanging on to that, right, they said it.
Yeah.
They're sober, so I should just stay here. But I remember you being very consistent and turning up and being quiet, but kind and a nice person.
Well, hey,
it was you, wasn't it? I was talking.
It was me. I didn't know that. I knew I was quiet, and I was hiding, and I was fighting for my life. So I was consistent. So our son was young. It was are we in the position to keep him? We'd been through a lot. Yeah. So I was. I didn't go into Priory. but I went to social services funded treatment for me. So, and that was my 4th treatment centre at the time. And I had just had enough. I'd been round the houses so long that I was just exhausted and I was desperate. And I knew this was the time.
Let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And where are you from and how was your upbringing?
Okay. Well, I was born in Hong Kong.
Did I know that? I didn't know, did I?
Did you not know that?
No.
Oh, for God's sake.
So international.
Born in Hong Kong. And my mum, she was from a gold mining town in Australia. She worked 2 jobs when she was a teenager to get on a boat around the world. But she dreamed of this city of lights. And when she got to Hong Kong, she was like, that's it. I'm staying. And she lived there 38 years. Uh-huh. My father was a policeman. He was born and raised in Kent. And he joined when he was 17. And by the time he was 18, he was in the barracks in Hong Kong.
Wow.
And he worked himself up to chief superintendent. But he was one of us. So apparently, once upon a time, very handsome, lovely man, but alcohol and stress and trauma got to him.
So you knew him, but not when he was...
No. I knew him later on when he was in it. So there was violence, there was sex addiction, alcoholism. I was just lost in it all. He didn't know better. My mum didn't know better. She was, fighting for a life, basically.
How long did you live in Hong Kong for?
19 years.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Went to school there. It's a good life. I didn't know it. But I grew up in a really nice community. It was called Mansfield Road. So you got all these government buildings and, a big park, which for Hong Kong was quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
And we used to play rounders. I was big. I loved my BMX. My BMX was my life savior.
Tell me you had a Pro Star. What did you have?
Do you know what? I don't know what I had, but my brother, I think, had the ET. What is it? Anyway, he had the good one.
He had the good model.
And we used to make ramps and everything. I was a tomboy. I used to climb anything. I'd come back black and blue. And I had no boundaries at home. I kind of really wanted them because my friends were like, oh, I have to go home. It's dinner time. And I remember feeling really desperate to have rules.
Is that because your dad wasn't there or?
Dad wasn't there. Mum wasn't there. It was kind of, you got brought up by maids. Who in themselves really didn't want to be there.
So did you not feel any sense of love then when you was younger?
No. My biggest memory is standing in the corridor, looking at the door, crying, just waiting for someone to come home.
Oh my God, that's
I know,
very sad image.
Yeah, and the lights used to mesmerize me because through the tears, they would beam.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Were you a lonely child?
No, I had an older brother, 2 years older than me.
And he was there?
He was there. He would read magazines and he was really good at just kind of leaving the room. He would just disassociate. I was the hero, protecting everyone.
Coping mechanisms early on.
Yeah. So I wouldn't sleep. I used to wait for Mum to come home because she took to skydiving, scuba diving, everything just to not be in the house. And my dad used to come back, obviously intoxicated, and we used to sit on his throne, we called. It's like this big wooden Chinese chair. He used to sit in front of the door, bolt the door, turn the bell off, and just fall asleep. So I used to sit there all night and like to crawl past him to let Mum in, and then make sure that he wasn't hurting her because it got quite bad. And he was unwell.
But you don't know that at the time when you're younger, do you?
You don't have capacity when you're just a little girl.
Did you think that was normal at the time?
Yeah. I knew it wasn't. I knew we were different. And I knew it's probably not best to invite people around.
Yeah.
But it was my normal.
Did that affect your schooling or your friendship with other kids?
Yeah.
In what way?
I had a best friend, Marina. She lived in Block 11. And she was the only one that used to come round. But then it was a bit like Dynasty. So my dad was having it off with her. It was all really messy. She fell off the bunk bed once and broke her arm, so she could never come back. And we used to fight like cats and dogs, but she was my saviour too. And I'm still friends with her.
That's
now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Is she there or did she move away?
She's in England now. So school was, well, I got up for school one day and my mum said, "You're wearing a different uniform." I said, "Why?" She goes, "They've kicked you out of your school for being stupid."
No way.
Yeah, so I had a stupid story. I'm dyslexic. In the 70s, they don't understand dyslexia.
I am so dyslexic.
Yeah.
Hence why I have my cards down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, to read. For those who can't see us, I have cards on my lap. Does that affect you now, though? Because you're so highly qualified in the field of addiction.
Well, going through my master's, I ate a lot and I cried and I kind of had quite a lot of, I can't do this. Why am I doing this? It takes me a lot of work to do something.
Totally agree with that. I get a build-up of emotions and I have to calm myself down. And then once I start, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's just, I could probably come to your office, you could tell me. It's a little bit of trauma because I remember trying to do stuff in school when I was young to read it out and mess up and everyone laughing. And saying to myself, I'm never doing that again. I remember saying that, I'm never going to do that again. Yeah. And holding firm in that area.
Absolutely. And you make a contract, don't you, with yourself there?
Yeah.
And, you know, it just gets cemented in how your brain works. That's just where you go. And you then don't know the difference between a real fire and just a puff of smoke. Yeah. It's like I'm reacting the same way. I had a teacher, I think it was Mr. Niven, I can't remember, but he pulled me up by my ear once in front of the whole class and said, "Where did you do your homework? With the TV and radio on? This is rubbish." And I had done it with the TV and radio on, but it was the shame of it. So I had a big stupid story. And it took a long time to work through that. Yeah.
Did, because you saw your father how he was.
Yeah.
I remember seeing stuff when I was a child and I swore that I'm not going to drink. It's not for me. It doesn't taste nice, doesn't smell nice. And what I saw was that it turned into violence or turned into, I had major anxiety. I still have anxiety when I'm around men particularly, sometimes women, that drink and they go past that point where they just start to slur, they get louder. You know they're looking at you, but they're not looking at you. Mm-hmm. And they get closer and closer. And that, for me, I just want to run out the door.
Yeah, and that's a trauma response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you still have that?
Yes, but not as much.
I mean, I don't go into those environments anymore, really, either. So.
Well, my partner drinks and he's got great friends and, you know, they're not addicts. And, you know, I kind of like feeling drunk by osmosis in a way, like just having a laugh. But that point that you talked about where they kind of one Prosecco too much and the C words start coming out, that's a bit, I don't like that. Is it a trauma response at the moment? It depends on who, depends on the tone, depends on quite a lot of things.
I guess that's right, actually, because if someone's quite funny and they're a very nice person and taking drink doesn't change them, then I get that. I've got an uncle who's the best joke teller in the world and I can sit with him while he's on his cigars and listen to him forever because I don't have fear about him. And you're right, I guess there's a difference here.
Yeah. With where I work, I mean, I've been subject to a lot of pissed off behaviour. But And sometimes it's absolutely fine. And most of the time it's really not. They keep telling me they wouldn't know, and I look really calm. But if there's a certain type of person that, because I've been subject to a lot of violence along my journey, it hits me in different ways.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is, and I didn't know this, it's just my brain adapting to how it was. Actually, we've adapted really well. And the brain's so good at doing that. It takes a lot of training it and regulating your nervous system. So I do a lot of yoga. I know you do. It's taken years of yoga every morning to and meditation and somatic experiencing, therapy, steps, everything. Yeah.
I guess a 12-step program is like a long version of CBT.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Right? Because you put yourself in situations, not dangerously or immediately, but I have to, the rewiring of the brain. I thought when I come into treatment, I'd do 28 days, come out brand new, shiny, know absolutely everything, have a couple of degrees, have an 8-pack, and I'm ready.
Yeah, wasn't that way? You threw the 8-pack in
there. It's interesting that I believe, I kind of feel that I was asleep until I come into recovery. And I was just working subconsciously with some good moments and stuff like that, but I felt like I was dealing with life and just reacting to life. And now for lots of work, like what you mentioned, I feel like I've become conscious or more conscious, you know, and then you get the chance to look at your thought process rather than be in your thought process.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
What you're talking about is being in your medial cortex and observing it rather than being down here in the trauma.
Yes.
And needing to run off to the pub.
Fast, yeah.
Yeah. And I think whatever your thing is, or if it's a few things, if you need it and you're reaching for it to soothe how you're feeling, that's an issue.
That's a really good thing to say.
Yeah.
Because in addiction, it's really hard to know. I didn't even know I was an addict. I didn't actually quite know what one was. I thought it was the park bench needles.
Yeah.
I worked with a guy when I was about 18 or 20, and we used to do suspended ceilings. It was just a job I did for a while when I was kind of lost. And I saw his van parked outside the apartments that we was working in. I went to run up and I looked in the window. I was like, what's he doing? And he had a bathrobe around his arm and was injecting at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, I can't say anything. I better not say anything. I better not tell anyone. And then went, same thing. He was doing the same thing every morning. And you can smell it, can't you? It's a really sweet, you can't smell sticky, but it smells like a sweet, sticky smell. And then, I mean, he killed himself about a year later, unfortunately. But I worked with him, and that was my first experience in that kind of feeling how this guy, how he would make excuses up, what he would do. He'd blame me for things, and I thought, oh, he's clearly got problems, I'll just let it go. And I remember we worked in a big department store on a Sunday, and then he said, oh, can you take that box out? And I took it out thinking it was his tools. And I'm like, it's a bit light. I looked inside and it was all closed. I'm like, he's only stealing from the shop. Now I'm helping him. I was like, no, not for me.
Probably safe to say he might have had an issue.
A little bit. When did you take your first drink? And how was that? Because I know for me, I feel like I weaned myself on to alcohol because I was scared of it.
I'm so with you. I was totally scared of alcohol and what it makes you be. But yet, because my parents used to have a lot of parties, and weirdly, I mean, this is very strange when you look back on it. There's a couple who used to dress up as Playboy bunnies. We were only little girls to serve the drinks. And of course, I would steal the leftovers. So very young. And before that and during that, I used stodgy food, risk-taking.
Yeah.
My BMX, anything. spinning really fast just to change how I felt. I just didn't want to be, I thought I was a mistake, so I didn't want to be in ever how I was feeling. So, I mean, we're masters, aren't we, at?
How would you describe that feeling? Because I describe it as feeling like shattered glass, not whole.
Yeah. For me, it's like a big dome and everyone's in it. And they've got the rule book and they know what they're doing and they're full of pizzazz and confidence. And there's me sucking my thumb, twirling my hair, the outside looking in. So desperate not to be in there, but wanting to be in there, but I can't because I don't belong.
So when you took the alcohol, sneakily or not, did you get an immediate effect?
Do you know what? I don't remember. But I must have done because I thought, oh, this is cool. And I felt like part of the gang.
It's funny, isn't it? So many people in recovery talk about trying to fit in, not belonging, feeling different from, born in the wrong family.
Yeah.
And there's so many different ways of describing the same thing.
Yeah.
I remember I was a gymnast and a trampolinist, and as soon as my feet would leave this trampoline, I just felt alive, like I'm free. And I loved that sensation of flying through the air. And it wasn't really about being the best gymnast. I was good because I practiced, because I loved doing it. Yeah. And I loved that feeling. And then, like the BMXs, I would always be the one being chased or doing crazy stuff. And, I've got lots of scars to prove it. And then we found... Do you remember Starsky and Hutch?
Yes.
The first one, not the last one. I had one of them cardigans and I couldn't believe that I'd got one. And I was like, this is amazing. And I went to make a ramp and I thought, I'll make this ramp on fire because it's going to look good if I do a jump. So on the old skips, they used to have lanterns, didn't they? I don't remember. They had like lanterns in the UK on skips, and they had oil burners in them. So I got loads of gunpowder from fireworks that I'd collected and basically tried to make a burning ramp, but it pretty much made a bomb. And I lit it, and I remember just seeing this flash and smelling like burning skin or hair. Ran home, and my mum opened the door and was like, oh my God, what happened? Put me in the shower. Had no eyebrows. I had no, I was just gutted because the whole jumper was just burnt. But everything was a drama. Yeah. Everything had to be something. Or I was either very full on or I'd be hiding in my bedroom.
Yeah. It's funny how you remember the jumper. And that's what you were gutted about. And that's what we do. We hone in. I remember when I was 12, I came home one day and there was a note on the door and the locks were changed. It said, go live with your effing whore of a mother. And I remember I was fixated on my piggy bank was inside. So there was nothing else really. It was my piggy bank.
Funny. Was that because it held value to get out of there one day maybe?
I've no idea. It's just, I just don't think when you can't cope with too much, you hone in on one thing of value to you.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe that's it. But your story about setting things on fire, we used to put that petroleum on our feet, set our feet on fire and run like that, just to get a reaction from people.
Definitely must have been a 70s and 80s thing, because you couldn't even buy a box of matches nowadays, I don't think. No. Drugs was a part of your life, right?
Yeah.
When did you... so what happened, when you had to move, I guess, from your dad's?
Yeah.
How long did you stay in Hong Kong for? And then when did you go to America or England after that?
So I went to Australia when I was 19, because I'm half Australian. And my brother had already moved there and he was getting into a bit of trouble. So my mum said, I'm a bit worried about him. Can you just go live with him, check it out? And I was already starting my career into drugs and alcohol quite well. I mean, I started when I was about 12, probably.
So you waited for a while?
Waited for a while. And I went over to babysit him and it just, I just ended up joining him on another layer. But heroin is quite easily accessible in Hong Kong. Yeah, cocaine, not so much. It was too expensive and hard to get. So that was the kind of thing me and a few mates did, really.
Was you smoking or injecting?
Sniffing it. Because I remember when I first came to England and scored, and I thought, what is this stuff? Or was it the States? It looked like hash. No, it was here, and just trying to, at that point, inject it, but it wouldn't work. But I snort it at first.
Was that in Hong Kong?
That was in Hong Kong.
So that was quite young then?
Yeah. I used to get bar jobs really young, and then always had to have my stash with me up in the ceiling just so I could feel good enough to get by.
And was that pretty consistent? Like, did you have a grip on that for a while before that went downhill?
So that was, my brother struggled with addiction too. And so I was kind of the uptight sister that was kind of following him around going, you don't take my brother out, you're a bad influence, all that stuff, thinking I had any power. But I still was learning and doing my own thing. It was progressively getting worse, but I thought I was in control of it. There was this old thing, don't do it for more than 3 days, that old thing, and then you won't get in trouble. And then I think it was when I moved to Sydney, it started getting quite bad until one point, for some reason, I had injected MDMA like quite a lot and had a weird reaction to it. And I called my mum and said, look, listen, I'm in bad shape. I've been on methadone for years. I need help. And, within a week, I was on a plane to San Francisco.
How old are you at this point?
21.
Still young.
Yeah.
So how long have you been using or injecting at that point?
Gosh. A few years. Yeah.
Did you know consciously that you're like, this is not a bad idea, or it is a bad idea rather, even if the 3-day rule does happen or doesn't happen?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I was 12, see, I was the good girl. I was good little Andy who would do everything, right? And, if you're doing good girl to survive, there's only so much you can do, and you never achieve it, do you?
No.
Until you press the sod it button grandly. And I remember thinking to myself, look, my brother's getting so much attention, being, the outrageous one, that, I'm going to make a conscious decision. But I don't think you can at age 12.
No.
You can't make a conscious decision. And I knew it was wrong. I knew about my father, clearly. It was in your face. I knew about my brother. But it felt, I don't think even at that stage, it felt good anymore. It was just not me.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I remember I smoked my first cigarette, a Rothman, at 7, because I wanted to fit in with the older guys. And you could buy single cigarettes from Barry, his name was.
Good old Barry.
From the Indian corner shop. And I had a little credit there, so I thought I was really cool. More about fitting in for me.
Yeah.
More about getting attention in that sense. And I remember smoking then. I remember actually, I never used to inhale it, but I'd hold it in to pretend I inhaled, like a really bad actor, on the stage.
Yeah.
And but it did make me feel nauseous and sick. And I remember going home and telling my mum, and she gave me a glass of orange juice with sugar in it. But if my kid come home at 7, I'd be like, you smell of smoke. What the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Did your mum know anything at the time?
Funny, actually, because I think I told my mum, oh, no, she used to smoke more. Those really long.
Yeah.
So we used to go out on boat trips and stuff, and she used to have one cigarette a month. Like, seriously?
They weren't that long, was they?
No. But I remember saying to her, can I have a puff? And it made me feel sick. And she goes, Good. So you won't be doing that again.
Okay, you just reminded me of my auntie's story. They were from Mile End and they moved out to Essex. And my cousin and I got caught with a packet of cigarettes. And she said, come to the store. She bought us a packet of 20, went back to the kitchen table. She goes, you can have all of them. And we was like, really? She's like, yeah, knock yourself out. And the idea was to make us feel really sick that we'd never touch it again.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
No. But going back to what you said about seeking attention, I much prefer to call it connection seeking. I don't feel connected and I want to feel connected to you.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so true. I've never heard that before.
I like it.
Connection
and for me,
seeking.
it was JPS. You know why? Camel non-filter, because they were cool, right? And JPS, because it had a black packet.
Yeah, with gold writing.
Yeah.
It's nice. I remember that year. I had a jacket with it on there as well. Didn't even know what it was at the time. So you're in Australia with your brother, looking after him very badly.
Very badly.
Where did you go from there and how long were you there for?
Just over 3 years. And, part of it was fun, popping pills and...
Was this in the 90s for the rave scene?
Oh, my mathematizing is so terrible. You know what? Sydney for me was more about rock and roll and watching live bands. I missed the rave scene. Yeah.
Bless you.
So, bless me.
It was a good time.
But popping pills was nice. But weirdly, I was wanting to be too in control to pop pills. They frightened me. I mean, I'd happily shoot up cocaine and heroin, but...
Because you think that wouldn't be in your system as long, or?
I know. Well, because tripping or ecstasy, you weren't in control of when it ended, right?
I so relate to that.
Yeah.
I remember my friends, we went to a place in Upminster called Berwick Manor, which was like a rave place. It's a beautiful manor house. I don't know how they let it be a rave place, but we'd go on a weekend. And I was really naive at that point. And I met a girl who was partying and stuff. And when I think back, I was very innocent. I'd go around the house on a Sunday morning at 8, like, do you want to come out? And she just got in probably 5 minutes before. And I'd wait until she was okay and then go out. And that girl was the first girl I took an E with. But I said I took a whole one, but I took a quarter just in case.
I did that.
Yeah. And then I weaned myself on.
Yeah.
When I was like, this is amazing. And that was all about connection. For me, that was amazing what you just said. I just wanted to have connections. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on mentally for people that have addiction or have had trauma where you can't just have a simple relationship because there's a lot of defense system goes on, or awareness or caution, whatever you want to call it. But for me, that period of time was amazing because people stopped going to the pubs, getting violent, on coke or drink. And you could hug anyone in a rave with 1,000 people, sharing their water, not worrying about anything.
Love everyone.
And that for me was like, wow, I wonder if people feel like this all the time. Like you can just talk to people. And I'd just run around talking to people because it allowed me to do that. The next day, I wouldn't even go down to the sweet shop to ask for anything because I was too self-conscious. I used to think I was shy, but I realised it was self-conscious, So when did you go to San Francisco?
So 21.
Was that because the legal drinking age in America was okay?
I hadn't thought it through. I mean, so when I was in Sydney, my mother and stepfather moved to San Francisco. And I said, it's time, can I come? And I went into a few treatment centres there. Yeah. In and amongst running away. And
was your mum cautious of you coming at the time? Because,
yeah. She'd been through a lot. She was in a new marriage as well. She'd been through so much with my father as well. And I think one of the strategies was, when they got married, is to send us both to boarding school in England. And there's so much messaging that she wouldn't have realized in that, So
Did you go to boarding school?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So when I was 12, went to boarding school. I went to an all-girls school on top of a hill wearing itchy turtleneck sweaters and a kilt. And my brother went to King's Canterbury. Yeah.
Did you feel abandoned?
I did.
How long were you there for?
2 years. Yeah. And, there is a thing called boarding school syndrome. I think the younger you go, the younger you go, the more affected you are. Children need their parents. My stepfather went when he was 8. It's just the normal thing to do if you're British.
Yeah. But
people didn't understand the impact.
So you haven't travelled much?
Not much, no.
And how many treatment centres have you been in total by the time you were in San Francisco?
No, in San Francisco I went to 3.
Right.
Well, I attempted a halfway house too, but got kicked out quite quickly.
Well, did you put yourself in, or your mum put you in?
My mother and stepfather helped me a lot in my recovery, and then when I came to England, I went for my last time.
Did you come to England because they had enough of you, or you had enough of you, and you wanted to relocate?
It's all a bit of a mess. But I mean, I went through a stage of, I went to prison quite a lot, and I used to call them when I first went, and then it was a state of, I'm not calling you. I don't want to just keep calling you for help. And they were moving to England. So they went back to Hong Kong for a while, and then I think I joined them there, and then we came over here in 1999.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I was trying to hide that I was using and started detoxing on the plane. And I remember I called an old friend from Hong Kong who's never used, no desire. And the first thing I ask him after all those years is, where can I score something?
Yeah.
So I remember I just drank an awful lot and tried to get by until I found, and then I ran off again. I found where you could go and hang out. And
so by this time you was a fully fledged intravenous user. Yeah. How I mean, it's up to you what you want to share, but did you get to the homeless point?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that in the last sort of year or 6 months of?
About a year and a half. Yeah, I was good at getting doctored by people, but I lived on the streets. But I would hide. I could never just lie out in the open.
Yeah, that was here in London.
Yeah, and San Francisco. Yeah.
After all the treatment centres.
Yeah.
And homelessness. What was the decision, or what happened for you to say, okay, this is it now, I need to get my life straight and in order?
Well, it was 10.5 years of trying in and out of treatment and fellowships. But it was my son, and I know children aren't powerful enough. Addiction is far more powerful. But I'd already lost a pregnancy to my addiction. And, it was a question of whether we could keep him or not. I found out I was pregnant in Holloway, as you do. I just thought, this is enough. It was difficult when he was born, and there was a lot of support in terms of, how we bring him up and if we do.
Yeah.
So he, I just, in a way, when he was born and I looked at his beautiful face and he smiled, or rather had wind, because I was asking him what his name would be. I had 3 options. And I just thought that was my step 1, 2, and 3 right there.
That's amazing. And he's super cool 21-year-old now.
Yeah. Wants
Which
to
is
be
incredible.
a cameraman. I'm lucky, we're lucky. He's a good lad. We have a great relationship.
How sober are you?
So 21 in September.
21, that's amazing.
Yeah.
At what point did you we went totally different, so I'm 20 years in a few months, but we went completely different ways.
Yeah.
What made you want to be a therapist?
Honestly?
Yeah.
I thought no one else would have me with my rap sheet.
Really?
Yeah. And also, when I was in one of my treatment centers in San Francisco, they did an extraordinary thing and they let me stay on for months with no charge. I started working in the kitchen.
Wow.
They deemed me one of those special cases that needed extra support. I was there for 6 months. And they were saying to me, Andrea, you really should do this for a living, which was lovely because I got that connection and, maybe I'm good at something. But also, I highly recommend waiting an awful long time, at least 2 years or 5 before you start on that journey.
How sober were you when you started?
I went to do my MSc when I was 2 years. And I remember bumping into an old therapist in my last treatment center in a meeting, and she went, oh, God, I'm so glad you waited because, don't do this too soon. And there's very good reason for that. Your nervous system is all over the place.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're doing. And I think there's benefits and downfalls to being in recovery when you're a therapist because, you can make a lot of assumptions that what worked for you and how you feel is how the client feels, and is not.
The other side of that, when I went into treatment, I think all of the therapists at the time were in recovery, and for me, it's like when I'm sponsoring someone, I feel like you've kind of got a blueprint roadmap that they don't have yet.
Yeah.
So I do feel like you have really good foresight as well, right? As you go on, because you're 16 years now as a therapist, right?
I think that foresight is great. And when you talk about connection, I think self-disclosing is important only for when it suits the client, not for if I feel I'm sinking in group and I need to just try and, survive by self-disclosing. I think it really has an impact, and that suddenly, you understand me. I'm not alone. That's the whole fellowship thing, right? I'm not alone. But not to assume I understand them in their entirety.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I was still healing. I obviously still am, but I think I've made a lot of mistakes. We all have as a therapist that I wouldn't do now. And I think that's part of learning.
Yeah. But that's why you get good, because you have the courage to make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that in life anyway.
Yeah. And I think the repairing is acknowledging you made a mistake.
Yeah.
Because the real trauma is when you've been wronged in some way and you try and talk about it and they dismiss your reality and say it didn't happen. That for me, because my reality was so, Dad, why are you doing that? I'm not, like, why are you bringing women home? I'm not. It's like, it's easy to knock me off my feet because my reality was always questioned. And I think you're always going to have rupture in any relationship. But if you're not willing to repair and say, you know what, I hear you, I made a mistake, then that's when the divide happens, and that's the re-traumatizing. So it's being able to, as a therapist or in any relationship, say, I made a mistake, thank you for telling me.
Yeah, and that's maturity as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And knowing yourself as well.
Yeah.
And it's safer because otherwise you're just building up a whole egotistical persona
Yeah.
which gets scary.
Yeah.
What, at the moment, do you see the most? What kind of addictions do you see the most at the moment?
Well, ketamine's really kind of on the rise, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is so sad, the consequences of that. But still the classical alcohol, cocaine, sex addiction, lots of that. But I see mostly couples at the moment, which is such an honor.
How's that?
I mean, listen, I don't leave every session going, wow, that was amazing. Sometimes I think, thank God for that. But actually, it really is an honor to be invited in. And I've always been so fascinated by what happens in relationships. And, in some ways you could say I'm a great person for it. I've had really terrible relationships, some violent ones.
Yeah.
My last one, but before this, wasn't violent, but we were so young and growing, and we didn't know. So,
do you feel like you're getting an opportunity to give the help to others that you never got when you were younger?
Yeah. And you know what? Even as a therapist, all the patients would come in and have a consultant psychiatrist. I could never afford to have a consultant psychiatrist. I've come to realize I had complex PTSD and the whole shebang.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. It was actually through my own learning and being close to consultants and working alongside them and doing a lot of trauma training that I've come to understand, that's why I was the way I was.
But it's incredible because you've been the director of the Priory and where else?
So I was in Priory Group for,
long time, right?
Like 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
As a therapist, manager, and then director. And I gave that up because I needed more balance. I needed less stress. You're always on call. And there's a lot of responsibility.
But do you ever look at yourself and think, this is where I've come from.
Yeah, how the hell
built
did that
all
happen?
of that up, prepared all that, and now I'm in charge of.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
It's pretty darn good. And a lot of pressure to bear as well.
Yeah.
And, terribly proud of myself. But I needed to let that go and just go back to simple, more balanced life, working part-time. And, it's great.
So you do bespoke, or you work in a bespoke place now?
So I do private practice.
This is all points north?
Yes, so I work in all points north as well, 2 days a week.
Yeah.
It's an amazing place, and you've said you'll come.
I'm definitely coming.
Pop in and visit. I mean, it's very snazzy. It's amazing. It's lovely. Great people work there. And it's all based on, lifestyle psychiatry. So
a holistic approach, basically.
Absolutely. If you need meds, great. But let's try the exercise. Let's go to the snazzy gym downstairs. We go. Let's do yoga and or massage or see the PT or the nutritionist.
Definitely coming.
Do some groups or have a one-to-one therapist. I mean, you've just got a plethora of stuff all under one roof, which is great because you get to talk as an MDT. So, if you say to a client, I want you to start going to the gym three times a week, half an hour or whatever, and they come back, yeah. But when do you ever get to sit in and have a handover with that PT?
Yeah.
Who says, yeah, they were there and this is what happened. And, especially with men, when it's less like you and I sitting face to face and it's kind of side by side and you're just doing training, he's going to hear a lot more than the therapist might.
But also it must be an easier process for the client to do it all in-house under one roof.
Yeah.
A couple more questions.
Yeah.
What's the difference between harm minimalization, does that work, and abstinence-based recovery?
So I've worked in harm min as well, where I was giving out needles and things and, using safely if there's such a thing. And I think there is for some people. And I think some people can manage that. And I always thought, but, what's your quality of recovery? Abstinence, I think, is easier, and you're not diverting yourself, and you can do a lot of work. And then you get the connection component through fellowship and stuff. Some people can manage other ways. I think recovery is different. It's whatever you want it to be, right? But I think recovery is very different to abstinence.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
If someone, any of our listeners are at home, they have a problem, they think they might have a problem, or someone around them has a problem, what advice would you give them for what they should do to seek help?
Yeah, call you. Go to, is it Stride?
Yeah.
But also the Samaritans, there's lots of helplines there. I mean, I love meeting people, and, just having a no-cost Zoom meeting direct you to the right place. But there's plenty of people that do that. There's some people who know really, really good centres out there. That is the best thing. But I think...
What about phone lines like Frank?
Yeah. I think anything.
Yeah.
Especially when you feel so alone, it's important to start to learn that it's okay to reach out. I didn't know that. And then, hey, you start learning you're deserving enough to hitch a ride in a Ferrari.
Deserving enough to offer a ride to someone as well.
Yeah. Get to a meeting. I used to do service in the helpline. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Directing people to where they should go.
And that's a 12-step program meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a bit of a junkie of fellowship meetings. I've done steps in 4.
That's why you're so well.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's great, and especially the ones that are quite insistent on outreach that I blagged for the first 3 was, getting to know other people.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's getting a community where you can, it's interdependent, but you can have those connections on a level. I always say it's like being on a life raft, that you're all rowing in the same direction, trying to get to shore.
Yeah.
And when one's tired, the other one can take that for you. And when you're tired, they can help you out. But we're going in one direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Stride Foundation. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please head over to www.stridefoundation.com, where you can find links to resources that may help. You can also make a donation. Please make a donation. It will help us bring to you more episodes. And if you enjoyed This Is Powerful, please rate, review, and follow the podcast to share it with your friends, your family, anyone you can, and head over to social media. I always love to see and hear how you react to the episodes, and it's so helpful for our content to be shared. A big thank you to my guest Andrea for today, and if you want to find out more about what she does, please check the show notes. Thank you also to my beautiful wife, Dr. Federica and Marty, the best producer, Shannon Delwich, to Henry, you know who you are, and to Emma Long, who does all the hard work in the background. And there's a whole catalogue of episodes wherever you get your podcasts. But did you know you can also watch it on YouTube? Just search for This Is Powerful with Paul Scolfer.